Hi, it's Sam, aka Lymphoma Lass here, and today I'm going to be showing you a fun recycling project for making fun costume jewellery with old nail varnish. So let me just move things out of the way and then we'll start. I started by buying myself some kits which gave me glass cabochons and trays to fit them in that matched. So this one's a heart one that I've almost finished now. So I'm going to start with the basic glass cabochon, and for this project it's like you're painting nails but reverse way round. So I'm going to use some clear nail varnish, standard clear nail varnish to start with, which you'd usually use when you're painting nails. You'd use it as the top coat to protect your nail art quite often. So I'm just going to paint the back of my cabochon with it, and guess what? I've managed to drop some. Didn't do that when I did demos, when I did my template ones. So I'm just going to clear that up. I've got my kitchen towel. I'm just going to wipe my cabochon, leave it to the side to dry, and get rid of that blob. Okay, so as if it never happened. So I've painted that cabochon there with top coat. The next thing I'm going to do, I've got one I've dried earlier because you have to wait for this project to dry in between, is to do the same thing I've done here, where I've painted over the top coat with nail smash, and it's a crackle based nail varnish, so it goes a bit like crazy paving. So when you're doing this on your nails, you'd already painted your nail with a darker colour underneath, and you'd paint this on top so it crackles over it. So this is very much trial and error, but what happens, I found with this particular one, which I got from Amazon, was as it dried on top of the clear nail varnish, it produced a kind of crazy paving effect. And it's actually, I don't know if you can see that, but it's starting to do it. So I'm going to leave that there and you can just watch it change, that one in the front. So then the one I've done before has got quite a nice crackle effect already, and I've let that dry totally before doing the next bit. So I've got to let those two dry totally before the next steps with them. So with this crackle effect, it's going to look best if you have a fairly dark nail varnish that you paint on top of it now. So this one I've done in 4 colours, in these 4 colours, in the stripes. And this one I decided to do in beach colours. So these colours. So that goes from the sand to the wet sand to the breakers to the deeper sea. And the deeper sea actually shows best. But for our test one, just because it's really easy to see, I'm going to use my little rainbow of colours. and choose the order you're going to paint them in, up and down or along, so you know in advance what you want to achieve. So I'm going to start with purple. These are just old colours that a friend gave me for crafting with, so they haven't actually cost me. So I'm going to do a line of purple near the centre, and I want that to be fairly deep, because the deeper it is, the more the white will show. It doesn't need to be a perfect line. This is just a piece of fun costume jewellery. If you want to do just a perfect line, do. So I'm doing it in the order of the pink evolving to the green. But I'm doing that one first to give that just a little chance to dry before I do the ones next to it. Then at the far end I'm going to do the green. Paint on the green. If you do one of these and you hate it and you wish you hadn't wasted your glass cabochon kit, you can always take it off with nail varnish and start again. Then I'm going to do, next to the purple, I'm going to do my bright pink. Delicately. And finally, I'm going to do my blue. You could use any colour you like for this, any colours, any patterns. I've decided to do stripes, but you could do any patterns, any colours you like. The thing is, though, if you're doing it with a black crackle nail varnish, try and make it that your colours are pale underneath. And if you're doing it with a white crackle nail varnish, like I'm doing, you obviously want your, for the best effect, the most dramatic effect, you want your colours to be fairly dark underneath. You can get all kinds of colours of this nail varnish. You can get ones that need UV curing. I deliberately have gone for ones that don't, because I don't have a nail varnish cure. So that then joins, just a tiny bit more maybe, that then joins the little line of nail varnish cabochons to dry. And then the last couple of things to do when that is totally dried, and I'd leave it a day or two, because I didn't wait a day with this one, and I ended up having to leave it off the glass cabochon because the nail varnish stuck it down, and I wasn't convinced how permanently it would stick it down, so I couldn't just leave it. So I'm going to use some silicone glue to stick my cabochon to my setting. I'm using this glue because I've used it before to stick paper and glass and metal together and found it's worked. I think the thing with crafts, half the battle is finding the right glues to use. When you're doing this with where you're going to see through the glue to the background, this is quite good, and what you have to do in that occasion is squeeze very hard and do a bit of wiping to push the glue all the way through. So you have to push quite hard to get it to move. In this case, there's less an issue of that, because in that case you're trying to remove any air bubbles from the glue, the silicone glue. In this case there's less an issue of that because you don't need to see underneath the nail varnish. So we've done that there, and that just needs to dry. Again, it's in my little list of my little row of things to dry. Finally, I want to show you threading on a string with a lobster clasp. So it's a cord. It's a waxed cord, plasticized cord, with a lobster clasp and a chain, so you can hang it at different lengths. So when I'm hanging my pendants, I think about how the person receiving it will do up the clasp, and generally they are right-handed, so I want them to be able to do the clasp with their right hand. So what I do is I thread the chain through, so the lobster clasp is on my right hand, and then they can do it with the chain much easier. Okay, well, thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this, and enjoy your crafting. Bye for now.